My name's Justin Palmer, and I'm currently a senior, so I'm going to be graduating here in the next month, so very excited for that. Right now I study animal models of aging and Alzheimer's disease, but what I'm looking to do in the future is switching to humans to do neuropsychology. It's looking at the differences in the cognitive effects and the pathological effects of Alzheimer's disease. So there's clinically, Alzheimer's disease is many people associate with memory impairments, and that's largely true, but there are many other cognitive domains that are affected with Alzheimer's disease. My study specifically looked at learning and memory processes with this specific disease, and then there's also pathology characteristics of Alzheimer's disease. So they're known as plaques and tangles, and basically what those are just protein aggregations in the brain that are affecting neuron-to-neuron communication, which results in a lot of the clinical problems that we see for Alzheimer's disease. And it's this idea of addressing a critical window, and so we're looking at ovarian hormone deprivation. And so a lot of times with women, when they're going through menopause, they'll often opt to take hormone therapy to combat some of the negative physiological changes that are associated with it. So there's been a lot of mixed results in the literature in terms of the effectiveness of hormone therapy, and so my study is trying to look at this potential critical window early after ovarian hormone deprivation. So in high school, I was generally interested in the nervous system, and I job shadowed several physicians that specialized in the nervous system, so neurologists, neuropsychologists, and then moving into college, I wanted to take that interest and wanted to get involved in a research lab. And so by the end of my first month, I think, of my freshman year, I was involved in Dr. Heather Bramante Nelson's lab, and then from there, just really trying to ask big questions about the brain. So trying to understand this machine that was put inside our heads, and so trying to understand how it was designed and how we age and how abnormal aging occurs, and so wanting to understand that. And that led me into neurodegeneration and specifically Alzheimer's disease. I mentioned before about plaques and tangles, and so they're protein aggregations simplistically that build up in the brain. And those happen oftentimes a decade before somebody even has any sort of clinical problem. So the first time someone walks into the doctor's office complaining about memory problems or some sort of cognitive deficit, the protein levels, specifically for Alzheimer's disease, are building up in the brain years beforehand. And so it's this idea of is there a threshold that the brain can handle before it starts being able to be clinically manifested, or is there something else going on that's a cascade downstream of the plaques and the tangles? And so this disconnect between, or this temporal lag between the plaques and the tangles and the clinical problem is really fascinating to me. I think that's why it's important that I have a hand in the clinical world as well as the research world.